Welcome to Garden Sanity. I'm Laura, and I garden here in Zone 7, Southern New Jersey. And today, I'm sharing a plant fail with you. And this has been a 3-year process. So this is something I've come to make peace with, but it hasn't been easy, and it's been a gradual decline of this plant. I planted 3 Firelight Tidbit Hydrangeas 3 years ago. This is my story. So once upon a time, in 2023, I created a video for you of me planting my 3 wonderfully healthy Firelight Tidbit Hydrangeas. I purchased them in the gallon size. They look beautiful. As you can see here from the video, the plants were full and healthy. They were packed with green leaves and stems. The only downside of that entire planting experience was the fact that my camera tripod blew over in the wind. You may remember that. But it all turned out okay, and I was so happy to have these added, these special miniature panicle hydrangeas, in my front garden for curb appeal. Now that video is still great to watch, as I do go over all of the growing information on these Firelight Tidbit hydrangeas, and I talk about how it takes usually around 3 years for shrubs to reach a good mature size. Now I'll link to that video at the end of this one for you, because I still think this is a fantastic little shrub, just not in my own garden, unfortunately. So that year, the year I planted it, was 2023, and there were many flowers that developed on each one of the Firelight Tidbits. The shrubs remained low, but I was really hopeful seeing those flowers bloom. Now by the fall of that year, the flowers were browning up a bit, but I did see some of the fantastic foliage color changes that are a feature of the Firelight Tidbits. I was already looking forward to future years when these little guys with their color-changing leaves would blend in with the other autumn colors already in this garden bed. Oh, these tidbits, I thought they were going to add so much to this garden bed. Now the following spring was 2024, and I pruned them back just a little bit, mainly taking off the dried panicles, the dried flower heads that I left on for winter interest over the winter, and I dutifully fertilized them with some hollytone. And that's all I did, because that's all really that was needed. I was so excited for its first full season. So many leaves developed on the existing stems, and some new stems grew. But that summer, no flowers appeared on any of the Firelight Tidbits. I'm not kidding you. The leaf color was, to me, more of a yellow-green rather than the wonderful deeper green they should have been. They also got hit with spider mites. So I gave them some Espoma iron tone to help improve the soil and green up the leaves. And I also sprayed them for spider mites. Now in September, I could see, and I showed you in a garden tour video back then, how the newer leaves were a better color indeed, but it seemed like the 2024 season was going to be a bust with absolutely no flowers on any of the shrubs. Meanwhile, all of the other plants and shrubs in this main garden bed continued blooming like always. So I did add a bunch of golden needles coreopsis to this bed to liven it up a bit, since I had absolutely no flowers from the Firelight Tidbits. So the first year, shrubs sleep. There's a thought of sleep, creep, leap. Okay, so the first year they sleep, and I thought, okay, that's kind of what happens. You know, when they, technically what it means by they sleep is that the roots are developing underground. You may not see anything happening above ground. So I thought, yeah, that's what it is. I didn't really believe it. I tried to tell myself that's what it was, but I didn't really believe it. So last year, 2025, was already its 3rd season in the ground. It was going into the 3rd season by the start of 2025. 2025 was sad. Not just for me personally, but the garden, specifically these Firelight Tidbits, really sad. Again, in spring, I gave them a slight pruning, not much since they are miniature and they honestly hadn't grown much. I fertilized and added compost as well. Now their late spring, early summer leaves were plentiful, but the color, it just still seemed too light to me compared to how lush everything around them was. I mean, all of the other plants had their true foliage colors, whether it was deep green or a blue green or a yellow green. But these hydrangeas, the leaves just looked wrong. The color was still a bit off. Now the shrubs did develop flowers in the summer, and at first I was thrilled. But very quickly, that thrill was replaced by frustration because the flowers and the leaves, they just weren't full. They weren't fluffy and lush. Again, like all of my other panicle hydrangeas that I've got, including other miniature hydrangeas I planted, like these tiny quickfire hydrangeas. As you can see, they were thriving. Because my oldest sister had unexpectedly passed away, and my parents needed our help more with their care last summer, we were basically back and forth between our home and theirs in Pennsylvania. So honestly, I didn't have the time or the mental energy to spend on worrying about these firelight tidbits too much. So now we come to this year, 2026, and as many of you know who watch my videos regularly, not only did my sister Renee pass away at the end of 2024, but my father passed away this past January. And that was piling grief upon grief for me. And my mother, who just turned 95, she also requires quite a bit of assistance now. So to say this has been hard is an understatement. So we had a really brutal, snowy and freezing winter, and that was actually perfectly fitting for my grieving, quite honestly. Quite a few of my shrubs were damaged by the freezing weather, specifically the ice and all the snow piled on them, as much as I tried to get most of the snow off. A phrase uttered way too often, it feels like these days, is, "It is what it is." And that's how I felt, because again, my emotions are all over the place these days. So some of the firelight tidbit stems had died in the freeze, and they just weren't growing any larger or filling out any fuller overall as a shrub. And I even had some Kramer's red winter Heaths that were newly planted in this bed last year. Those barely survived. So when I saw what everything looked like in the spring, even with all the pretty daffodils blooming, which cheered me up a little bit, looking at these firelight tidbit hydrangeas, I was done. Maybe it was my grieving. Maybe it was turning 60 last month. I don't know. I don't have any more time to fuss over these plants. When in this bed, I don't fuss over anything else. I mean, you've seen my videos on my Pinky Winky hydrangeas. You've seen my videos on the Fothergilla. You've seen my videos on most of the plants in this bed, and I don't fuss with them. I don't baby them. And I was doing that so much with these firelight tidbits just to get them to look decent, or try to get them to look decent. I couldn't even get them to look decent. Not even getting them to look great. I just couldn't do it. So I was done, and I decided they had to go. So in May, very dejected, I came outside to dig the plants up. But first, I was greeted by Myrtle and Harold, the mourning dove couple who live in our front yard. They made things a bit better for me because they stayed nearby in that garden bed the whole time while I removed the firelight tidbits and replaced a couple of the Kramer's red winter Heaths as well. I decided to replace those Heaths, even though I had just planted them last year and they were kind of dying or dead. I wanted to try new ones because I do love the winter flowers on them, and also the evergreen color, because I do try to garden for all 4 seasons of interest. But then we had our first heat wave in June. And despite my best efforts, some of the Heaths browned up. Yeah. And so that's when I decided to add more perennials that can handle heat and humidity as well as some drought. And I began with the butterfly blue scabiosa, also known as pincushion flower. So far, so good. And I need to emphasize so far, so good, because I want to do much more with this bed. But right now, I've got 2 things working against me. First, as I mentioned, I'm grieving. And there's some days, gardening's the last thing I want to do. I love gardening, and I look outside, and it chokes me up to say this, but there's times where I don't want to come out. So that's working against me. I'm trying to let my body rest and I'm trying to let myself tell me what I can and can't do right now. The second reason is because this summer's been brutal. We're only in not even the middle of July right now. Today, when I'm filming this, it's July 13th. And we've already had 2 heat waves. And the last one was an extreme heat wave, so to speak. Extreme heat warning is what we had. One day, the temperature here was like 107 with the heat index of 112. Now, a lot of people will have temperatures of 9,800 and then they have a heat index of 107. We actually were having temperatures that were like 107. Now, in some parts of the country, this is considered normal. It's not normal for our area at all. So I know this could be the new normal, but we're expected to have another day this week coming up where we're going to have over 100 degrees. And when it's this hot, plants sort of slow down. Some of them will even stop trying to force out blooms. They'll focus more on what's going on underground. In general, this is the worst time to do planting right now. So that's another reason I'm not going to do any more with this bed right now. When temperatures get too hot, plants survive by kind of shutting down a bit. So I'm going to wait until later this summer into early fall to add more plants. But in the meantime, let me give you a little tour of the front bed and some of the plants in the front yard that are blooming right now, because quite honestly, we could all use a dose of pretty, especially with it being so hot everywhere. So I hope you enjoy these plants. I'm not going to go in depth on each one, but I will tell you a little bit about them, and in future videos I'll dive more deeply into them. Oh, and please keep in mind that some of these are very newly planted this season, so they're not big and lush and full like they will be in subsequent years. So instead of seeing a big full thing, you might see, a couple kind of anemic plants, but we'll get there. So here's how this area looks. Now this is the area across from where I had the firelight tidbits on the other side of this giant circle bed. Now this part of the bed is mostly green because the totally tangerine geums have been finished blooming for a while and I cut those back. And then the Petite Jenny and Petite Henri flowers have also finished and I cut those back. And they may, you'll see one or two pink ones, they may have another flush, I'm not sure. I cut them back a little too late this year, so I might have missed that second flush. Now usually I plant annuals here, but this year I decided perennials were going in this spot instead. So these are Arizona apricot blanket flowers, otherwise known as gaillardia. And these bloom non-stop, literally from early summer well into fall. You don't even have to deadhead them, and more blooms will just keep coming. So obviously I love this plant. But the funny thing is, this one plant seems to be a different color than the other two. Now last year, I added this pretty Tradescantia. It's commonly called spiderwort from Walter's Gardens. It's a newer variety and it's called Webmaster. Now I'm out here a bit later today, so some of the flowers have already closed up, but here are some close-ups that I took a few days ago with more flowers open. They are so beautiful and intricate. Another pretty perennial is one I planted late last year. This is a Stokes aster. It's also from Walter's Gardens in Proven Winners, and it's called Riptide. Now I'm trialing this for them, and so far I love what I see. Now I showed you this bed last year in a popular video on how I made over this garden within a garden, which is what I called it. And this garden within a garden is just starting to ramp up. So this year what I did was I added 2 more Heliopsis plants called Raise for Days, because I loved the first one I planted here last year. And here's more of the Stokes aster called Riptide, which I planted here in this side bed too. Now on the other side of the garden, this is a sea holly that I stuck here a few years ago, and it loves this spot, so here it stays. And finally, here's one of my favorite plant combinations. Emerald green arborvitaes being a perfect backdrop to black-eyed Susans, which are just beginning to put on their show for the summer. And to close out the video, in my backyard, the star of the show right now are these Kismet echinacea plants. So let me know in the comments if you can relate to plant fails. I sure hope you can. And until next time, happy gardening.